In 1620, while the Mayflower was in Provincetown, 18 of its men sailed in a small shallop, searching for a place to live. They came to present-day Eastham, where they were met by a group of Nauset. After a brief but violent encounter, the English left towards today's Plymouth. In 2020, we remember this first encounter. We explore its meanings for today and tomorrow.
Good evening. Welcome to our Sunset series. I'm Thomas Ryan, Vice Chair of the Eastham 400 Commemoration Committee. Tonight I'd like to read from two different documents about the location of First Encounter Beach. This is the first reading will be from a 1933 essay called Some Lower Cape Cod Indians, the Nawsetts. And this is by W. Sears Nickerson, as I said, 1933. And this is his section where he talks about, is the First Encounter Beach the actual site of the first encounter? The Tercentenary Committee of 1920 placed a marker on a point of land north of Great Meadow in Eastham to commemorate this first encounter between the Pilgrims and the Nawsetts. They may have had information at hand on which to base their choice of this particular location, which has not come to my knowledge. But from a careful study of the words of the men who marched up the Cape and participated in the fight, and from a very intimate knowledge of the terrain, I do not see how it possibly could have occurred at the site of the marker. As this event was peculiarly a Nauset affair, I take space here to point out my conclusions, quoting from Bradford's History and Mourt's Relation, both written by men who were there, and using my own familiarity with the country to interpret their words. The Pilgrims say that since morning of Thursday, the 7th of December, 1620, the day before the fight, they had marched up the bay shore from Grumpus Bay near Wellfleet, swung inland in the wake of some Indians whom they saw at a distance, and about 10 o'clock in the forenoon had come to a large Indian burying ground. A 3 hours' march from Grumpus Bay would have just about brought them to the old Nauset burying ground north of Great Herring Pond in Eastham, which empties into Great Meadow. Leaving the burying ground, they say they followed an Indian path a long way into the woods. There can be little doubt that this Indian path was the old Nauset Trail up the Cape, which swung east by Great Meadow and then about southwest until it came to the headwaters of Boat Meadow Creek. This old road, which the old settlers mention in their new layout of the Eastham Setauket in 1668, followed it very closely. A long way into the woods along the Nauset Trail would have taken them well by Great Meadow before noon, because it is not over 2 or 3 miles from the old Nauset burying ground around the head of Great Meadow to the stepstones at Boat Meadow Creek. In the afternoon, as they say, they left the path and struck westward toward the bay shore in order to contact their shallop, which had been coming up the coast by water. As a matter of fact, although they probably did not know it, they could not have turned westward much sooner because of the marshes of the Great Meadow. Had they turned eastward, they would have come out on the shores of Nauset Harbor and seen the cleared fields and the head villages of the Nawsetts, which they assuredly would have mentioned. It must be remembered that they were making a generally southerly course and not getting too far away from the bay shore in their shallop. The point from where they must have turned westward in the afternoon brought them right out onto the high point of land on the north bank at the mouth of Boat Meadow Creek, from which a clear view of the bay and the shallop could be obtained. Here was a bold, sandy landing place in a bend of the creek at the foot of the hill on the point, and an ideal place on which to build a barricade and defend the boat. Every feature of the surrounding landscape at the mouth of Boat Meadow Creek agrees with their story of the fight. Their boat close at hand, near enough so that a man grabbed a brand from the campfire and ran easily with it to the men in the boat. Some of their guns lying at hand on the bankside. The shouting of words of encouragement back and forth between the boat and barricade while the guns banged and the arrows flew. Even the name of the creek itself, by which it was known even before a white settlement had been made at Nauset, suggests that the Pilgrims commemorated the creek where their boat lay during the encounter by calling it Boat Meadow Creek. Admitting all the changes which 300 years have wrought to the terrain, there is nothing to show that there ever was suitable boat landing for a shallop of the size the Pilgrims used, anywhere near the site of the tercentenary marker on the north side of Great Meadow. I add, that is now called Herring Creek. The nearest place where their boat could have landed is hundreds of yards away across some miry marsh, which is covered partially at high tide. No soldier could have laid his guns down on ye bankside, and there is not even a suitable place for a barricade. Even if their story of the previous day's march permitted of the possibility of their reaching this spot for a night's bivouac, I cannot conceive of an experienced soldier like Captain Miles Standish choosing it for a boat landing and a barricade. So that's the conclusion of that portion of an essay by W. Sears Nickerson in 1933, saying that it was a mistake to put the marker on that hill, now covered by poison ivy, on that hill just north of what we now call First Encounter Beach. Here is an excerpt from Mourt's Relation, written a couple of years after the first encounter. In the morning, this is the morning before the first encounter, on the 7th of December, the day before. In the morning, we divided our company, some 8 in the shallop and the rest on the shore, went to discover this place, but we found it only to be a bay where the Indians were the previous night. We found there nothing. We found the land to be a level soil, but none fruitful. We saw 2 becks of fresh water, which were the first running streams we saw in the country. But one might step over them, they were so small. We also found a great fish called a grumpus dead on the sands. They and the shallop found 2 of them also. We then directed our course along the sea sands in the place where we first saw the Indians. When we were there, we saw it was also a grumpus which they had been cutting up. They cut it into long rounds or pieces, above all long, and 2 handful broad. We found here and there a piece gathered by way, as it seemed, for haste. This place, the most we're minded we could call Grumpus Bay, because we found so many of those dead fish there. I interject, most people think of this as near Campground Beach, where on December 6th they saw some Indians. On December 7th they went walking looking for those Indians. We followed the track of the Indians' bare feet a good way on the sands. At length, we saw what we thought an Indian house, but then we came upon a great burying place, one part whereof was encompassed by a large palisade, like a churchyard, with young spires 4 or 5 yards long, set as close one by another as they could, 2 or 3 feet in the ground. Within it was filled with graves, some bigger, some less, some paled about. I'll end there. It's just describing the Nauset burying ground that Sears Nickerson described, just north of Herring Pond, not far west of this library. Thank you very much. We'll consider more often in the future, where was the first encounter? Thank you.
My name is Joanna Hollick, and I'm the coordinator of the Sunset series with Eastham 400. I'd like to thank you for all of your support of the Sunset series over the past few months. Although the Sunset series is drawing to a close, this is not the end of Eastham 400 events. In the coming months, we will hold a variety of different events and programs. An example of such programs is a sunrise service that will be taking place at 7 a.m. on December 8th, the 400th anniversary of the first encounter. I encourage you to check Eastham 400's website, www.eastham400.org, to stay updated on upcoming events and other projects that we are working on. Thank you.